Team Awesome is back! Welcome to Tangled Talk with Team Awesome, episode 9. Today we're going to be featuring our second guest ever, Meg, aka Holy Hairbrush on Tumblr. Meg, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Meg. I draw some Tangled fan art on Tumblr, though I haven't done it recently. And I've just kind of been a fan of the movie, like, ever since it came out. So I've been here for a while.
Yeah, Meg's one of our fellow Tangled grannies. She's been with us for the long haul. We've all kind of known each other or known about each other basically since the movie came out.
Yep. Yeah. And we've all suffered together.
Yes.
In the dark ages.
Yes. We have!
Tangled.
Dark ages of, like, not only was there no Tangled, but, like, people were starting to like other things better, and that's not cool, man.
No, you can't do that.
All right, today's episode is There's Something About Hookfoot. It's directed by Stephen Sandoval, written by Jeremy Shipp. Storyboards are by Wendy Sullivan and Shane Dalvin. And I wanted to start out by saying, did a filler episode really have any right to be as good as this episode was?
Right?
So good.
Amazing.
I mean,
it was a really good episode.
I mean, and surprisingly so. Like, honestly, it was the way that I described it on Tumblr is that it is 100% filler and still super cute. And the more I watch it, the more I like it. Because it's like, we get, first of all, freaking Serafina, who is a mermaid. That's awesome enough. She's a shark. That's double awesome. And she's freaking plus size and described as, you know, what is it? Stunningly beautiful.
Yep.
It's just like, that blew me away. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting that. And that is just so freaking amazing to have this plus size representation. It's just like, yay.
Yeah.
And she got all of those pretty, like, it's clear that she's supposed to be super beautiful because she keeps getting all the pretty sparkles and slow motion things. So, like, it's a clear message that she's a gorgeous, gorgeous character.
It's like a shark mermaid.
Yeah! Wow. Shark!
I'm so dumb. I was just like, that's cute.
Yeah, no, she's absolutely a shark, and I thought that was so cool because it's like, I mean, first I was like, wait, is she? But then you have that one, like, scene where Hookfoot's riding on her back, and, like, the motion of the tail is just so sharky, and it's really, really cool. She's also got the little black tips on the ends of her fins that are, like, a lot of sharks have that particular feature, and yeah, so she's a shark, and that's super cool. She's not, like, a stereotypical mermaid, but she's also not, like, a killer mermaid, which is kind of cool. So.
Yeah.
I'm glad that, like, when we got the description and it was like, oh, she has ulterior motives. I'm like, oh, great. She's using him for something, and we're all going to end up not liking her at the end. And then we were like, oh, come back.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm happy they went in that direction, too.
Yes.
And that scene at the end was so sad. With the mermaid tears.
Oh my gosh, just absolutely, completely littering the beach to show how much she missed him and how sorry she was. Like, what the hell,
so
man?
Sweet.
Oh.
Yeah, so, like, and then on top of that, we also had, like, Rapunzel and Eugene's first on-screen argument. And it's like, I'm not counting Painter's Block because that was, like, a one-sided fight. And Rapunzel wasn't herself.
She was
so even though it was like, she was angry and that needed to be said, and it wasn't like, those were actually her feelings, it was just shit she would never actually say. But this was the first time they were actually having a difference of opinion and were at odds, and we're kind of fighting it out a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it wasn't nearly as dramatic as the argument in Vanishing Village, but it was still like, hey, they had a fight. Awesome.
Woohoo!
It's funny because I was waiting up for the episode and it was like 1:30 and it wasn't up. And I was like, you know what? I said, screw this. I'm going to bed. And I woke up at like 5 and I was like, don't get on Tumblr. You're going to spoil it for yourself. So I got on Tumblr and I spoiled it for myself. And the first thing I saw was them looking angry at each other. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I have to watch this now. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but they're mad at each other.
That's fantastic.
I really love the observation, and this was done by, what's the title of the blog? It's Have You Seen the Show About the Hair?
Yeah.
I think and her observation on it was that this is actually really indicative of what each of them looks for in a relationship, that Eugene has had to, like, try to be charming his entire life, and he's utterly convinced that's the only thing that people will ever like about him, if he really puts a lot of effort into it. And Rapunzel, everybody in Corona likes her effortlessly. And so her saying that no matter what you do, it doesn't matter. And him saying, oh no, I don't love you for who you are. That's how each of them was like perceiving this argument. And that's why it was like really sticking with them, is because they're like, wait a minute. So we've been doing it wrong the whole time, you know? So it's super duper great. And also it's just great that like, I don't want a couple who's completely perfect. That's boring, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that they have little spats and disagreements, and that they roll their eyes at each other, and that they don't just spend all of their lives like gazing at each other in abject admiration. They
Like
do that,
we
like,
do.
95 Yeah, right? They do that like 90% of the time, but give us that 10% where they're at odds, and it's fantastic.
It is. It's so good.
And speaking of Eugene turning on the charm, so apparently the smolder is like not all he's got in his arsenal.
Yep.
Apparently he also has a simmer, and as we all know, a simmer is like a lower key than a smolder, just descriptive wise. And that makes me go, so how many more steps are there between simmer and smolder? Like, are we going to get like roiling boil? Are we going to get
I love that it had its own thing too. Like
the
the smolder has its little song, so the simmer also has its little thing. It was so great.
It has this little saxophone riff, and the simmer has a little maraca shake. Oh my gosh, the fact that his facial expressions have themes says so much about him.
He's so great.
He is so great. Oh, and also, so they're still on the beach in this episode, so we got more of those outfits, which was fantastic. More of Eugene showing way more skin than is legal, even though like he could totally take the shirt off and we'd be perfectly happy.
I don't know why you
oh my
did
god,
it.
I pointed this out to Becky, and Kelsey, but we got to see Rapunzel touch the Fitz chest for a brief moment.
Yes, for a brief moment, she had her hand on his
picks her up bridal style. She puts her hand right on his chest, and I was like, oh, perfect.
Yep.
Oh, geez, Disney, you better watch out. It's trying to get spicy.
No, I think the best part about this is that the crew 100% knows what they're doing to the fans. I am positive that every time an episode airs, they're like texting each other, being like, watch Tumblr, they're about to start reacting. Watch Discord, they're going to start reacting.
We're all just screaming.
Yep.
Seriously. So, I mean, it's hysterically funny to me. And again, this loops back around to, like, me appreciating how much the crew is involved in the fandom. Like, they didn't have to be, and yes, there's only, like, a select handful of them who really hang out with the fandom much at all, but still, we've got, like, 4 or 5 people that we can talk to on a regular basis, and it's not that hard to get a hold of them, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's super cool, because it's like, sometimes, I know that some creators are a little aloof in that regard, and we don't have that, and I'm very, very appreciative of that.
Well, I feel like we have a smaller fan base than a lot of other, like, because there's groups like Steven Universe and Voltron and Gravity Falls that had huge fan bases, and so they were all asking the creators things.
Well, to be fair, Chris and Kate in particular started talking to the fans before the show even aired. They were already talking to people. So like they made a point of having a presence there right away, and I'm like that's super cool, and I really, really appreciate that about them.
Yeah. And they do say the thing that, they're fans of Tangled as well. So, they were also going through the awful 5 years of no content, except they didn't have to suffer through 5 years because they started working on it in like 2013. So
they only took it to like 3, but still, even so. But I mean,
well, not still... even because tea, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool. I see it too with some of the like animators who work at Mercury. They draw some like really cute like fan art and stuff, and then like sometimes there'll even be like their students at the place where I go to school, and then they end up getting a job there.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
Oh, it all comes full circle.
It does. It comes full circle. Like, I actually, speaking of things coming full circle, I actually found out that one of our top favorite Tangled fan artists of all time, who I'm constantly talking about how much I miss, Andels, I think she works for Disney now. Like,
really?
What?
Yeah, like I was looking at somebody's one of their Instagram accounts, and they had started posting this thing that was just like various people who work at Disney with them who they appreciate, and all of their art they've got tacked up on their things, and one of the art was Andel's and it was tagged. And I'm like, oh my god, does she work for Disney now?
Yep.
So it's like, I understand. I mean, I was crushed when the poor woman dropped off the face of the planet, because it was like, I was pretty sure that people stealing her art and stuff like that drove her away, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is why we can't have nice things, you know? And so to find out that she, in the end, turned out to work for those people, I'm like, oh, thank God, you know? You're such a good artist. I'm so glad that she did something with it.
Her art is so good.
It really is, and I miss it. Like,
Yeah.
if I, like, saw random, like, Tangled fan art from her pop up again, I'd be, like, dying. It's just, like, it was so good, and it's, like, I, like, lived by that for so many years.
I was so sad when she left, too. I think, like, probably only about, like, a week or two ago, I started, like, thinking about her art again, and I, like, made my brother sit through Google searches of it. I was like,
Oh my gosh, right? Because it's, like, it's...
Tangled fan art. Like, okay, that's cool, thanks.
It's so good.
It's not, she doesn't, like, it's not on her Tumblr anymore, and it's not on her DeviantArt anymore. The only place you can find it are the places who basically stole it from her.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
It's on
like,
Pinterest. I've seen it.
yep, it's on Pinterest. You can find it there. You can probably find it on We Heart It. You know, all the
I
places.
think I have all of it saved on my old laptop.
I think I have all
because
of it on my
there you
current
go.
laptop. Or at least
Not
on-
like I was gonna do anything with it. I just wanted to
but
have it forever.
Yeah, it's so pretty. Like, that is such fantastic fan art. So, back on topic. We got a little sidetracked there. So
What? We never get sidetracked.
get
Never.
sidetracked on this show. So it was pointed out to me by an Anon, and honestly, I wish a lot of people with these really cool observations would not be on Anon, because I'd like to be able to talk to them more in depth about things. But they pointed out that when you look at Eugene's bracelets with his tropical outfit, each of his bracelets kind of represents one of Rapunzel's outfits. Because you've got the purple one with pink stripes, you've got the burgundy one, and you've got the green one with the lighter green stripes. And they all, like, match her color palette perfectly. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, Eugene is wearing bracelets based on his girlfriend. How cute is that? You know?
It's freaking adorable.
It's so cute.
How cute is it, though, that he's wearing bracelets in the first place?
I know.
Like, dude goes to a tropical island and he takes off half of his shirt and then he puts on bracelets. And I'm just like, this is
He likes
fabulous.
to accessorize.
A fashion icon.
Yes.
I'm all for men wearing jewelry, honestly.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean,
Like,
that's
yes.
the thing. With this show in general, I actually really like how they're treating men in general, because you've got that where Eugene is actually very, like, appearance conscious, and yes, it's vanity, but he's also, like, straight up into grooming and stuff, and he wears jewelry, and he doesn't care, and it, you know, nobody ever makes fun of him for it. But then you have, like, Lance, who does things like plants his chin in his hands and kicks his little feet up in the air when he's listening to somebody's love story, and it's like, no one cares, and he, like, nobody talks down to him for doing that. And it's not the first time he's done something something that would be considered feminine. Like, he also, like, dances in a tutu, and no one cares, you know? And so I just think it's really great that the show is starting to take men and put them in a role where this is just normalized, you know? And that's absolutely amazing that they're normalizing things like men being emotional and liking girly, quote-unquote girly things, and it's like, Disney's doing it right with this show.
Yeah. I mean, this whole season is way better with, I feel like, just overall representation, because we got the I love you from Eugene to Lance, which wasn't.
That's still, like, groundbreaking. That is so amazing that they did that.
It was, they're brothers. They're best friends. It's the best thing. And they're showing emotion for each other, and I love it. And then, we had Quaid, who's a black man in charge of a town and the law and order there. And then we got Serafina, described as stunningly beautiful, and she's, she's not skinny.
At all. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, Like, from the very first still, when we got, like, the still of her the day before the episode aired, I was like, oh my god, she's chubby. Oh my god, she's chubby, and she's stunningly beautiful. And I was, like, thrilled. Like, I honestly spent a good half an hour to an hour, like, on the verge of tears, just so happy that this was being shown in a cartoon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we have Adira, too. Like, you know, she's this badass East Asian woman who is just kicking total butt, and
I miss
it's
Adira.
amazing, and I love her.
And she's older. That's another thing.
Yeah,
Adira's older.
that too.
I mean, they're like, they are not doing a great job showing older women as being older, but we all know she is because 25 years ago she looked the same, you know? So it's like 25 years ago she was already a full-grown adult, which makes her no younger than 45, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely that they're starting to represent a wider range of people, and that is really awesome, you know?
Yeah.
I'm ready for her to
I feel
come
like
back. I miss Adira.
I do too.
I'm back.
We need more of Adira.
Yeah.
Adira means plot, so let go.
Literally, right?
Adira means Ellie.
Plot.
Adira means Ellie might get more Dark Prince Eugene evidence.
Adira means Ellie gets out the tinfoil.
Yeah.
Adds to the hat.
Yep.
So, yeah, all in all, that was a surprisingly good episode for what it was. Also, I like that despite the fact that Rapunzel and Eugene were at odds for half the episode, as soon as the fight started, they were in perfect sync together.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so it's like, this just showed that this was a superficial, on-the-surface thing that they kind of need to get out of their system. But, like, between him running down the hill using her hair as a shield/battering ram, which was great, because it's like, I love it because it's like her hair's not doing magical stuff right now, but it's still indestructible, and he's using it as a weapon, you know? So that was pretty great. And then just the entire fight was actually, I like the choreography of the entire fight.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Cass's little snark-off line about you brought forks to a knife fight. And then that's not how you do a knife fight, you know? I loved Lance stealing the trident and, like, his maniacal little giggle right before he did.
He was so excited.
His little finger wiggle, too. He's like,
wiggle. He's so excited to steal this trident. And then after the fact, he still has it. So I'm like, he looks good with a trident, man. Let him keep that thing. It's a great souvenir of his adventure. Now he's got a trident for sea people. But, I mean, and then, like, just the whole choreography and how Hookfoot was, like, torn between the place of saving the woman that he loved and running off with her. Like, he was straight up like, all of the pub thugs have given up crime because of Rapunzel. And I was like, you know what? I'll pick it up again just this once so that we can have a life together, you know? But first, he tried to convince her not to be a criminal anymore. And it's like, oh, like, Rapunzel's influence is really spreading. She's convinced all these people to be genuinely good people. And that is so great. I am so happy about that. And then, like, her turning around and being like, no, just let him and his friends go, and I'll go with you peacefully, and I'll give you back your stupid fragile pearl. So, I mean, it was so great. And I don't know, it was just way better than I thought it was going to be. I think that's a part of what makes it so great, is that it was way better than I thought it was going to be.
I like how Hookfoot was like, you know, he came on this journey to find whatever the rocks are leading to, and then he's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna ditch these guys. I'm gonna swim off with my mermaid.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Hookfoot is not interested in the rocks so much as he just offered to go along to, like, help.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So one thing, like, if nothing else, you have a tool on your foot. Oh, speaking of which, how cool was it that they actually, like, acknowledged that that's not a part of his leg, that he took it off. He was actually a visible amputee for a while there.
Yep.
And sure, he's got another one, but that's another point in the representation thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, it was great that they gave him the spotlight instead of just making him a walking tool. Because, I mean, the only time he's ever really gotten spotlight before this was when they needed his hook for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think the overall reason that Hookfoot's on this journey is so we can have an episode with him and Hookhand.
Yeah.
Because they're going to meet him on the road. We already know this because Mandy leaked the script. But...
Good old Mandy.
Yeah.
Mandy's leaking scripts again.
This time, but then Eden leaked a script. She leaked a
one.
big one.
Yeah. Eden leaked a big script there.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. So that's a lot of question marks there. I love how people ask me questions about things like, what do you think is going to happen in this leaked episode in season 3? And I'm like, dude, I have literally no idea. Sorry, I've got no clue what's going on in season 3.
I was just gonna say, like, he says his name is Hookfoot because he's got a hook on his foot, but I'm like, I am to assume you did not pop out of your mother's womb with a hook, because that would be unfortunate for your mother. So I'm just wondering, like,
well, we already know that, like, almost all the thugs.
Kind of like, we could put a hook on this baby's foot.
Yeah. Maybe both he and Hook.
Real name that we need to discover somehow in the show.
These are the real questions that need answered.
I mean, yeah, maybe there's some sort of mutation in their family where a lot of their babies are born without limbs.
Hookfoot is the Dark Prince. Calling it now.
Yeah, there's like 3 options for either.
Get out your tinfoil hat, Ellie. I've got theories.
Oh my god, Kelsey.
I'm telling you, one day one of my crack theories is gonna be right.
I know. I was so sad Birdvarian wasn't right.
I still have my money on it.
I was genuinely sad that Birdvarian was not right.
I thought that was such a clever idea, and I'm like, it's just like it's
just
smart.
the right tone to make it plausible.
Hey, show's not over yet. Give it time.
Yeah. Right. Maybe that maybe that tea is rolling its way to Corona.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll still get that Birdvarian.
Exactly.
You never know.
Way through the river.
You mean that completely shattered tea set?
No, it got absorbed into the clouds, like how rain works, and it's gonna rain on Corona. Everyone will turn into birds.
Oh my god! And then they get
quality content here.
Everybody's birds.
It's just anarchy. Yep. Just birds. Everything's a mess.
You know they've been like recycling plots for season 2, so season 3 they get back to Corona and they're like, now we have to figure out how to turn everybody not into a bird.
Yep.
Shorty, get the eggs. Oh man. Gosh. Anyway.
So, fortunately for us, we got the description for Happiness Is, which is, I'd like to remind everybody, the last episode before we go on hiatus. So we get this episode next week, and then we're on hiatus for all of September, and we don't know how long the hiatus lasts. But Happiness Is a homesick Rapunzel discovers a mysterious idol with the powers to bring instant happiness to whoever holds it, but its power threatens to tear the group apart. And literally, we were all talking about mermaids, and we got this description, and everybody stopped talking about mermaids and started talking about theories about what are people's happiness is going to be. And I mean, of course, we've got the general theory of, so does the idol just bring like this instant euphoria, or are people seeing visions of their happiness? And of course, everyone's jumping on, if we're seeing visions of the happiness, then what do you think we're going to see everybody's happiness at?
Yes. I can't wait.
I know, right? People are pretty solid on, okay, so Eugene's happiness is obviously going to be being settled down with Rapunzel. So that's got tons of people being like, please, God, show us like Daddy Eugene or Pregnant Rapunzel or something.
I'll lose it. I will lose my mind.
I'm going to be like out of town with my family, and I'm just going to be a whole wreck the next day. If they're like, here are Eugene and Rapunzel's kids, I'll be like, I can't even speak or see anyone right now. I just need to absorb this fact and eat as many Fitz pancakes as possible.
Yes, everybody, next weekend, Happiness Is. That is Fitz Pancake Day. That is the 26th of August. We have not really discussed any further doing anything for it other than like having a whole weekend of submitting art and stories and gifts and whatever else you come up with. But Happiness Is airs on that day. So eat your pancakes while you are watching that episode.
Cry over those pancakes.
Do, my friends. If you can't art, if you can't write, just take a picture of yourself eating some pancakes with a Eugene doll.
Yes.
Like,
If you don't
Simple.
have a Eugene doll, just take a picture of the pancakes you're eating in honor of him. So how much would you guys freaking die if part of happiness is, part of Eugene's vision was Pancake Day?
Oh my
my
gosh.
gosh. They wouldn't do that. I know they wouldn't.
I know that they
But it would
wouldn't,
be amazing.
But I mean,
Come on, Ricky.
Come on, Ricky. You know, like,
Make the
yeah,
pancake memes
like,
official. It's canon.
Yes.
amazing. Pancake Day would be official.
I wish we could make all the old memes canon.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, seriously. I mean, they already used Strutting Eugene, so
they did.
Hello Kitty Flynn.
Oh, so good.
All those memes are like, I don't even know where they came from. Like, they would just appear on my dash with like zero explanation, and I was like,
You're like, all right.
okay. I guess you like.
Wasn't there one that was like Rapunzel
came
in
from-
inappropriate places? Do you guys remember Rapunzel in inappropriate places?
I
where they
vaguely
just, like,
do.
They just like edit her. It was like the scene from When Will My Life Begin reprise where her arms are all spread out, and they would just like put that in random places. In random.
Oh, yeah.
The best part is occasionally I would see one of those edits show up in someone's like article about something unrelated that's about like the main picture but not the Rapunzel part, and they just randomly pulled a picture off of Google and it happened to have Rapunzel in it, and they didn't catch it before they posted their article. It was hysterically funny, and you talk about Rapunzel being in random places. That was so funny.
One of my favorites was Tangled Much, and he would either edit watermarks of Shrek very, very faintly in the pictures, or he would make their heads just a little bit bigger where you wouldn't notice unless you stared at it, and then people would reblog it just as the picture. And I would text him and I'd be like, I am crying right now.
That's
I didn't know
amazing.
he did that second thing with
It
the
was
head.
so funny.
Yeah,
I
it's
just-
hilarious.
God. Yeah, that's some good stuff there. Oh, old days, man.
Does anyone remember the photo that, like, I don't think it ever came with, like, context. It was just a photo that existed of, like, the part where Eugene is, like, holding the satchel, you know, because he's like, sorry, boys, my hands are full. But someone did, like, this incredibly, like, far too good of an edit where they just replaced it with, like... like panties, and I was
The
like,
black and red lacy panties, yes! Oh, I love that one.
I hate this.
I love that one.
man.
It's so ridiculous.
We were wild back then.
We were. And I was a teenager, like a young teenager when that came out, and I still loved it. I didn't even care. I'm like, I'm a child, but this is fantastic.
There was some crazy stuff back then.
There was some crazy stuff.
But yeah, so it's like back in the old days. I mean, that's the fun thing about having Meg on here right now is that I'm sure that most of our audience has no idea what we're talking about. And it's just like,
These
that
grandmas
was
are
also-
crazy.
Well, it's like every now and then you see on Tumblr a post that says reblog if you've been on since like 2011, and I'm like, oh, I've been here like longer than 2011. So back when Tumblr was like newish, and we were all crazy all the time.
Yep.
Like people had not yet settled down on Tumblr. I mean, you think now it's pretty settled down. It was we were just so random back then.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even watch Supernatural, and I participated
God.
in the Misha
In the
apocalypse.
Misha apocalypse.
We all participated.
Don't. Oh gosh, I'm too traumatized by that. You can't even bring it up around me.
See, and now I feel bad about that because it turns out that Misha Collins was really uncomfortable with that. And
Oh no!
And so when we were planning Misha Apocalypse round 2, everybody's like, no, cancel.
It's canceled. It's canceled.
Delete.
Misha didn't like this, cancel it. So yeah, we were pretty crazy back then. But yeah, so we're getting lots of questions about what do people think people's happinesses are going to be. And I kind of wonder if this whole thing started with Rapunzel being homesick, if her happiness isn't going to be like finish the quest and get back home, and then possibly even like and reconcile with Varian or something like that. Because it's like, we all know that she didn't feel good about that, and they don't have the time and resources to fully explore that. And I know that a lot of people are frustrated and think that Rapunzel does not actually care. But you can tell by the end of Secret of the Sun Drop that she does actually care very much. It's just time constraints. They just can't do it in full exploration. And so it'd be kind of cool if she was allowed to acknowledge her remorse there, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's got to be bothering her. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's on this fun adventure, and she knows she's left unfinished business behind. So, and okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, also we have the question of coming up about they haven't left the island yet. In King Pascal, the plaque that Lance read mentioned a ferry that comes every new moon. So since the caravan is destroyed, I assume they're waiting for the ferry. It's just straight up what I'm doing. They're having a little vacation while they're waiting for this ferry to arrive. So maybe the ferry will arrive at the end of, the episode. And so I kind of feel like this is going to be the episode that like pushes the plot on again. So it's sort of like they're stuck on the island for a couple days, but at the end of the episode they kind of have this sense of we got to finish this quest. This has gone on long enough. We got to get going, So I'm hoping that we get some of that, that they leave the island at the end of the episode. But that also asks the question about, is the idol just on the island? Is it washed up on shore? Is it maybe on the ferry itself and they pick up the ferry at the beginning of the episode?
Yeah. I mean, like, in my mind, when I was theorizing about that, I'm like, I bet there's, like, some creepy, person who's like, oh, you're feeling sad about home. Here's this idol that will, give you visions of happier times or something.
That's way too, like, I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's just
I know.
That just rings of, like, Wicked Queen and Wishing Apple,
Yeah.
Oh, you're having a sad time, have this magical thingy. That'll make you feel better. And then it, like, almost tears the group apart. So it's like, that's one of the questions that people are asking is does it tear the group apart because everybody can see what everybody else's vision is? So it's like, people are like, I can't believe that's what makes you happy,
Oh, I hope so. Ooh.
And also calls to mind, like,
I can't wait.
And also calls to mind things like, well, what are people going to see that other people are going to be disappointed in,
Yeah.
And maybe if Rapunzel does see Varian, maybe everybody else is like, are you serious?
Yeah.
You still are you want to get him better or whatever your issue is. So, so that'd be interesting. So I'm very, very curious. And we already know that this one is written by Ricky Roxburgh, who has destroyed us so many times before. So we're basically ready for that destruction in this one.
Yep. I'm ready for the pain, Ricky.
Yep. Things that threaten to tear the group apart. And Ricky's in charge. Yeah, this is gonna be great.
We're all gonna cry.
I'm
ready it now.
I'm ready to cry over some pancakes. Let's go.
Dang straight. My pancakes taste like tears.
What near-death experience do you think Pascal will go through this time?
Yeah, I know, right?
Pascal's happiness is just like Pascal's story, his memories from that. He wishes it never happened.
He's gonna have to sacrifice himself to destroy the idol to save everybody.
Oh my god.
Watch out!
The friend who I watch this show with, usually, she doesn't even, know anything about, the crew or anything. And even she was, turned to me one day. She's like, somebody really wants to kill Pascal, but, can't because he's at the wedding.
Well, to be fair, Ricky did not, write Pascal's, or King Pascal, so that wasn't him this time. If Ricky's gonna
Are you sure it wasn't, though? Because, they have a writer's room. He could be like,
he's like,
what if you written part where Pascal might? Yeah, he's like,
what if he gets eaten? I mean, he'll get spit up right away, but what if he gets eaten, man?
Yeah, what if he wrote a scene, just a little one where something bad happens to Pascal and we think he's dead for a minute? You could just do that.
Just a quick
Queen for a day. He's like, oh, what if Pascal sacrifices himself, just jumps right off the edge to get the rock out of the machine?
And they're just like, Ricky, can you suggest something else?
No, this is my legacy.
Oh,
but
man.
on the other hand, what if there was another writer who also does this, and they're just sitting there oh, that Ricky taking all the Pascal murder shit. When's it my time in the spotlight, huh? I want Chameleon Death too.
Oh my gosh. Poor Pascal.
Well, crew, if you're listening, and I know some of you are, whoever is in charge of all the Pascal death, let us know.
Yes, we want to give them credit where credit is due.
Yes, absolutely.
So we had the joy this week of actually finally getting the short Hairdont.
Yes.
Which we've been like we were commenting last week or the week before and whatever else, that Hairdont we've been aware of this short for a year and a half because Mandy leaked stuff. Dang
it, Mandy!
But yeah, so we got Hairdont finally, and it was actually worth the wait. It was super duper cute.
It was adorable.
Really, really enjoyed that one. Eugene is adorable as always.
And he got called Eugene on the wanted poster.
Right? Even though it wasn't technically a wanted poster, it was a, an advertisement, but it's still like, yay, he's Eugene, and he's just plain Eugene, and that's great.
Hey, maybe it was a haircut wanted poster.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, man.
If anyone wants to email me, like, modern Eugene, like, side shaved fan art, once again, I'm at Holy Hairbrush. Please send those my way. Thanks.
Right, I was absolutely all about that. I'm like, you know what? Seeing him with that shaved head and the bangs sticking up, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like modern AU punk version Eugene, and I'm living for it.
Yes.
I didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't like it.
Aww.
I like his, what did I say earlier? I like his luscious locks. Bring those back.
Just so as we're winding down to a close on this podcast, I'd like to let you all know that we are reading your suggestions, and since it has been brought up more than once, we're going to address this here and now. Ellie, Kelsey, and I are 3 adults. We have jobs, we have social lives, we do this podcast for fun. We don't mind constructive criticism, but please keep in mind that we also don't have the time, money, or skill to make it a high-tech venture. We are planning to dress it up a little bit during the hiatus, but don't ever expect it to be like really super duper high quality or anything like that, because we just don't have time to make it great.
It's a lot of work. You don't realize how much work it is until you do it, and then you're like, man, this is a lot harder than you thought it was.
Like, I have to give like super hats off props to Kelsey, because the one week that I edited, I was like, oh my god, you have to stop and rewind and all this crud and take out long silences and make sure that the language is clean enough. And so, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and none of us have the ability to dress it up much further than it is. We're going to work on a couple little things, but don't expect it to get really fantastic at any point. You have to remember that we are doing this primarily for ourselves. We're a bunch of friends who are sitting around having a conversation about something that we adore, and we're inviting you to listen in. It's not like we're trying to gain a huge audience. So just keep that in mind.
We're basically just recording what we've been doing for the last 7 years, which is talking about how much we love Tangled.
Yeah, absolutely. That being said, we are still and always are taking suggestions. During the hiatus, again, we are going to be only doing it every other week. So since the hiatus begins on August 27th, the following week, we will not have a podcast. We will have a podcast for Happiness Is, and then we won't have a podcast, and then we will, and then we won't, et cetera, for however long the hiatus lasts. We're only going to be doing it every other week, because without the fresh material to bring in, it'll just be easier on us. Also, if the show's on vacation, we deserve to be on vacation too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think that wraps up this episode of Tangled Talk with Team Awesome. Thank you very much, Meg, for joining us.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, guys.
Absolutely. It was always fun to have you here, and you're welcome back anytime.
Oh.
And okay, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.